Assalamualaikum, my name is Siti Fatima. I can explain about introduction. The National Archive of Japan was established under the Prime Minister Office on 1 July 1971. It was preserved and recorded historic public archive by granting access to users properly but in a way that helped familiarize the public with use of the archive. Number 2. The National Archive of Japan is an organization that bears basic national responsibility. It was designated as an institution to be shifted to an incorporated administrative agency as a result of the guidelines for promoting central government reform decided by the headquarters. Number 3. Public records and archives stored in the National Archive as historical material to preserve administrative document limited to those which are allocated as a requirement transferred to the National Archive under the provision of Article 5, paragraph 5 of the Public Records and Archive Management Act. Number 4. On 1 April 2011, the Public Archive Management Act comes into effect. It formulates and implements the Uniform Management Rules for administrative documents, introduces the record schedule, requires reports on management practice of the government ministry, newly established the system of inspection and recommendation by the Cabinet Office, and provides for the use of external professional opinion and promotion of use the historical public record and archive. The last, the Japan Asian Historical Record Center was opened in November 2001 as one of the institutional organizations operating under the National Archive of Japan, with centrally digitalized data through internet from various national institutions such as the National Archive. The next slide, I can explain about the mission. The mission of the National Archive of Japan also contributes to the development of democracy of a high quality of life through the preservation to use of public archive as a common asset, with preserving for the future to new generation.
The National Archives of Japan is a government agency which serves to ensure the proper preservation of historical, evidential records and provides access to the researchers. Although archivists throughout the world have been tackling difficulties brought on by ever-evolving digital technology for more than 2 decades, Japan's government's documents have been maintained in physical. Furthermore, the transfer of digital documents created by government agencies began in 2011, and the total number of volumes is still at 1,759 volumes. Digital records obtained by the National Archives of Japan are in general converted to long-term preservation formats in accordance with government's rules to maintain their readability. They were then archived in the Electronic Records Archives of Japan system for transfer, preservation, and use. To ensure the preservation of digital archives, the National Archives of Japan follows the procedures as in first, metadata creations, second, security, third, digital file integrity checks, and fourth, proper backups. Depending on the file type, long-term preservation formats for obtained documents to be converted are PDF and JPEG. Furthermore, where acquired records cannot be converted or must be retained in their original form, it is required that they shall be preserved in their original format. The National Archive of Japan collaborated with the Japanese translations project of the DPC Rapid Assessment Model, DPC RAM, which allows organizations to examine their digital preservation capabilities. As for the collections, there were 3 holdings, which are Principal Public Records Holdings, Principal Ethics Documents Holdings, and important cultural properties of Japan. The National Archives of Japan presents important government documents and records as historical materials received by the Prime Minister from various government ministers and agencies and makes them accessible to the public. As for the next activities are appraisals and disposal. The administrations of non-current records by National Archives of Japan and other institutions is now governed by the same law as the maintenance of current records by administrative organs. A regulation was also passed establishing universal management standards for administrative records. Following careful examinations and considerations by the Public Records and Archives Management Commissions, which is made up of outside professionals and experts, the standards adopted here were outlined in the Cabinet Order and the Guidelines for the Management of Administrative Documents. The guidelines specify the fundamental principles listed below regarding papers that must be transferred moving forward to the National Archives of Japan. For the first, documents are documents containing crucial information about the structure and operations of incorporated administrative agencies and state organs, as well as their decisions, implementations, and policy performance. For the second, documents are documents containing crucial information on citizens' rights and obligations. For the third, documents are documents containing crucial details about the natural and social surroundings in which citizens live. And the fourth, documents are documents containing crucial details about the state's history, culture, academics, and incidents. According to the rules, some documents must be destroyed, while others must be given to National Archives of Japan as historical public records and archives. Documents pertaining to the creations of laws and their context, as well as cabinet decisions and their context, for instance, must be transmitted. Based on these established norms, as administrative bodies now evaluate and choose their administrative documents. There were insufficient checks made about decisions regarding transfer and destructions. Individuals' organs must now specify actions to be taken when their retention period expires in the form of a record schedule as far in advance as practicable under the new system. An approximate deadline for granting a record schedule is the end of the fiscal year following the fiscal year in which an administrative document was created or obtained. The National Archives of Japan is consulted for experts and technical opinions on the schedules by the Cabinet Office after receiving reports from each organ regarding the progress of these record schedules. Administrative organs must first acquire the Prime Minister's permissions before destroying an administrative document file after it has reached the end of its retention period. This forbids administrative organs from getting rid of records on their own and forces them to ask the Cabinet Office for permissions before doing so.
Assalamualaikum. I will continue with the accessioning for the National Archives Japan. Accessioning is the process of transferring physical and legal custody of permanent records from federal agency to the National Archive and Records Administration (NARA). Permanent records are extremely valuable to the nation and the public interest. Second is the National Archive and Record Administration (NAJ) acquires historical public records and archive from various ministry and agency in accordance with the Public Archive and Records Management Act No. 66 of 2009. When the retention periods of historical public records and archive held by state administrative organs and incorporated administrative agencies expired, they are transferred to NAJ. This procedure ensures that historical public records and archive are transferred safely, and fumigation is one of the process that and AJ used to prevent damage caused by mold, insects, and etc. Specify historical public records and archive, for example, are fumigated before shelving when they are brought into the National Archive from ministry and agencies.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Shafia Dini. I will now explain the arrangement and description of the National Archives of Japan. Arrangement refers to the process of analyzing the types of archives of an organization which their provenance and original order are reflected and understood. Arrangement also involves setting archives into hierarchical levels that includes group, series, items in which this order reflects the creation and usage of the records. On the other hand, description of archive is to identify, manage, locate, and explain archives which mirrors the arrangement of archive. And to describe archival materials, archivists required to analyze, organize, capture, and record information or details about the collection of archives, which includes key elements such as title, dates, contents, and creators, and others. The National Archives of Japan have two digital archives, which are the National Archives of Japan Digital Archive, and the second is the Japan Center for Asian Historical Records, GACAR. The arrangement and description of both digital archives are based on the second version of the General International Standard Archival Description, or also known as ISAD, which is an international standard approved by the International Council on Archives. It provides guidelines for creating the content of an archival description, and the standard guides what kind of information and elements that should be included in the archival description, and the guideline defines 26 data elements for describing archival records. The arrangement and description of the National Archives of Japan Digital Archives. It is arranged in hierarchy structure, where the first level is the funds, which is the government agencies that transfer the records. The second to fifth level is the series, the sixth level is the file, and the seventh level is the item. For example, the catalog description starts with number 1, which is the book title, number 2, the hierarchy, number 3 is the call number or the reference code, number 4 is the item number within the file, number 5 is the name of creator, number 6 is the date, number 7 is note related or the scope and content, the real number of the microfilm, and number 9 is the images. The arrangement of the Japan Center for Asian Historical Records. It is also structured in hierarchy structure, for the first level being the fonts as the name of the organization that hosts the record. The second level is the sub-fonts as the place of origin. The third level is the series, followed by the fourth level is the sub-series, and the fifth level is the file. The last level is the sixth level, which is the item. For example, the catalog description starts with the number 1, the title, number 2 is the hierarchy, number 3 is the reference code, number 4 is the call number, number 5 is the language, number 6 is the date, number 7 is the extent or the extent and medium of the unit of description, number 8 is the administrative or the bibliography history, and number 9 is the summary, which is an additional information added by the GACAR. Next, I will explain the preservation and storage of the National Archives of Japan. The preservation of archive materials refers to the proper management of environmental conditions, storage facilities, and appropriate packaging of materials to protect it from internal or external damages that might disrupt the materials. The National Archives of Japan carefully preserve the archival materials by conducting preservation activities and programs that includes general maintenance such as environmental monitoring, security controlling, preservation surveys, and other activities to ensure that the materials are preserved well. The National Archives of Japan also preserve the archival collections by digitization of some materials and make the materials available in digital formats for online access by the public. There are two digitization programs by the National Archives of Japan, which are the National Archives of Japan Digital Archive that holds the description and digitized images of the historical records preserved by the institutions with access to the catalog data, and second is the Japan Center for Asian Historical Records, which preserve the Asian historical digital records, and the storage for archive institutions is all materials in physical forms and data captured in digital forms. The National Archives of Japan stores materials in controlled environments that are suitable for preservation, and the key elements for good environmental conditions are low temperature of the storage facilities, relatively low humidity to avoid growth of infections or molds, free from pests and pollutants, and suitable amount of light exposure. And in addition, the Digital Archives of Japan are stored in the electronic public record system as digital formats, and the original copies are stored at various geographic locations in Japan, such as the Tokyo Main Library.
Hi, my name is Sushmir KP. So I will explain about Access and Reference Service. Japan Center for ASEAN Historical Record JACRA was founded in 2001 as a division of National Archive of Japan and Digital Repository. It allows users to enjoy useful features that let them browse high-definition photos and significant cultural artifacts and other material with true explanation on NAJ Digital Archive website. They provide 8.68 million photographs online, including poster, large-scale material, and colorful scroll. In addition, the National Archive of Japan work with National Institute of Defense Study and Ministry of Foreign Affairs Diplomatic Record Office to run the Japan Asia Historical Record Center, which make the original historical document about confederate relations between Japan and neighboring Asia available to the public as digital image. Furthermore, the National Archive of Japan has made its complete collection 1.2 million volume and 15 linear kilometers of shelves available online via cataloger database. The website abilities to provide English interface as well as cataloger and access point in both English and Japanese. Other than that, the National Archive of Japan allow access to record its archive to visitor. To access the holdings, visitor must fill on a request reforms and send it to the reading rooms at the Tokyo main office or by email or and fax. Next, outreach activity. The National Archive of Japan has been involved in a range of process interactions and going to promote it since its foundations. Additionally, they actively include their institutions to outreach events hosted by archival organizations and other nation archives. NAJ has been involved in international exchange such as International Council on Archive (ICA), East ASEAN Regional Branch of International Council on Archive, and International Archive Culture Exhibitions. So as we can look, the first activity that involved in National Archive of Japan is the French Archive Directory General and Presidents of ICA that invite by National Archive of Japan in 1989 to display the French archive. Second, we have the ICA Executive Directory that visits Japan in spring of 1991 that deliver multiple presentations on global trend in archive in Tokyo, Kyoto, and Chiba. In addition, National Archive of Japan also participate in and members of East Asia Branch International Archive Council uh, that uh, briefly served on board and conducted three general conferences in Tokyo in 1997, 2007, and 2011. The National Archive of Japan hosts a special seminar titled Archive in the World Today, following the executive body meetings that encourage the growth of archivists' personal knowledge of their position in the electronic information society, and the seminar was conducted to explore more about the world of archive. And last, we have the National Archive of Korea and Ministry Republic's Administrations and Security that staged the National Archive Culture Exhibition ICA in 2010 in Seoul that involved with other nations, especially the National of Archive Japan's that display 28 reproductions of its priceless treasure, including record pertaining to Korea, and gave an overview of its operations and activity through the use of DVD presentation and adversities material.
Thank you to my friend. Now I can continue the next slide about SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis is an acronym that stands for strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Internal strength and weakness indicate that the organization can control and modify things, but external opportunity and threat indicate that things exist outside of the organization. It can also opportunity to survive stress, but it cannot change the situation. The main purpose SWOT analysis is to help get a review and explain about all the factors involved in making a decision. Number 1. String. The string ascertained by the National Archive of Japan be able to create public archive and records as an intellectual resource shared by the community as internal source for knowledge in search strategy for database that have been provided. Number 2. Weakness. The weakness that are the National Archive of Japan, such as the loss of official documents, in the event President of the Japanese Science Council does not recommend to the Prime Minister to able action accomplished by the fact that it is not considered a collection that must be analyzed and clarified before being made available for online discovery and user. Furthermore, the description and indexes of all collections do not meet current requirements. Its limited distribution network. Number 3. Opportunity. The opportunity for the National Archive of Japan's contributing to the realization of a civilized society respond to the rapid movement towards digital transformation as a best effort. Number 4. Threat. The threat in the National Archive of Japan are changing the role of the environments in identifying the collection supported in the reference source is very limited information in archive and record management service.
To conclude our visit, the National Archive of Japan is a government agency with fundamental national responsibilities. It has preserved and recorded historic public archive by ensuring proper access to users, while also assisting the public and becoming acquainted with the use of the archive. The National Archive of Japan also provides archive as historical evidence in order to permanently preserve the specified historical public records and archive in the future. With the archive being open to the public through several archives, the public can broaden people's understanding of history and improve the public service in the future. We as a public and a society must preserve and protect our archive in any country we live in because they can be used to educate the public and even our future children on any historical event that has ever occurred throughout the country, so that history of bad things will not be repeated, thereby creating a future in which the society rise much further.